Well, hello all and welcome to International Women's Day 2021. The theme for this day is Choose to Challenge, which is highly appropriate given the state of the world today. Our aim at the Women in Cotton Group is to increase the engagement of women, the impact of women within the industry by giving them a stronger voice. By sharing and learning from each other and by networking and supporting each other and hopefully building the network in the global cotton community, making it stronger for both men and women. So I suppose we're choosing to challenge in a way that defines where women exist in the global cotton supply chain and highlighting the importance of the work that they do to improve the diversity and also to strengthen the future of the global cotton industry. So today I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Jess Lehmann, who is working in the biosecurity space, research space in the Australian cotton industry. Now, Jessica, I know from her background, has grown up on a cotton farm in Narrabri, northern New South Wales in Australia. So she has cotton in her genes, literally in her DNA. Her father was one of the first agronomists in Australia to work privately or independently. So he basically blazed a trail for Australian agronomists. And I think that all things cotton would have been discussed around the table with you, Jess, from the time you were a toddler. So I do believe it's in your DNA. And welcome and thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Eimear.
Jess, can you give us a little bit of background about your growing up on a cotton farm and also your decision to continue into your career?
Sure, Eimear, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I grew up in Narrabri, northwest New South Wales, here in Australia, and Narrabri and Wee Waa is known as the cotton capital, I would say, of Australia. And so I grew up on a mixed cropping farm just out of town in Narrabri, and lived with my mum and my dad and my brother. And so I guess with my dad, he was the first independent cotton consultant here in Australia. So I guess I have sort of followed in his footsteps. And so I guess after leaving school, I started working at the Australian Research Cotton Institute in Narrabri, which was just a short drive from the farm. And I started working with one of Dad's industry's best friends within the cotton industry, Dr. Robert Mensah, who is a man of worldly knowledge and great character, originally from Ghana. Just an incredible man to learn from, who has just continued to actually mentor me within my career moving forward to this actual present day. I mean, I still talk to Robert every week as a friend, as a mentor, as in guidance for the industry. So I worked on a cotton project with him for a couple of years there at the Cotton Research Institute, and also so it was also a struggle with gaining research funding at the Cotton Research Institute, and I guess you would find that anywhere within the universities. It's always just a struggle trying to find sort of research money. So during the off times, I would go and work at the Cotton Classing Institute as well. So I've done a little bit of cotton classing as well, and worked at the Cotton Gin there in Oscott. So yeah, I've sort of moved about quite a bit. And one time, I guess after working at the Cotton Research Institute, I got a little bit tired of working with plants, so I ended up going and working in at the University of New England in Armidale, and worked in animal nutrition on a ruminant nutrition project to because I have another passion, which is climate change and the effects on to do with agriculture and everything like that. So we worked on a methane emissions project to do with sheep and cattle. So we did a grape mark trial, another research. So research is a passion of mine as well. So as you can see, but yeah, how does this money get decided? Like who decides this? So I was like, okay, so it's the ARC, the Australian Research Council here in Canberra. So that's where I went. Okay, well, I've done the on-farm and I'm constantly going, okay, so my salary is pending funding, really want to continue. And then I'd also be sharing the office with this professor there at the UNE, and I'd be struggling. I'd see him putting so much effort into all these applications and so much time. Like, I just really wanted to know what the decision process was behind for these researchers to get this money. So I went to the ARC here in Canberra, worked there for about 2 years, and I tell you what, it was an eye-opener to see how quickly the big wigs decide who gets the money, how much they get, who doesn't get the money. And yeah, it was really incredible. So I guess I've done that full circle. And now I've also ended up here at Plant Health Australia. So biosecurity is an interest of mine. And I guess I'm working on biosecurity plans and working within industry, connecting to reduce endemic and exotic pest incursions on farm and at the border. So it really is, I guess, in just improving market access for industry as well. So,
well, you're very easy to interview because you've answered about 3 of my questions already. That's great.
Probably a lot of ums though.
Not at all, not at all. One of the things that you've gone through a few different segments of the industry when you're going through your learning phase about where you want to land and where you want to find the best way to participate and to make from what I'm getting from your background, you really do like to drive change and you like to have advocacy positions as well. So I think being in the space you're in now in Canberra is a really important space to be in, because as you say, research, funding for research is always, globally, it's always a challenge to get the funds to the right research program that will make a difference, because a lot of programs take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So once the funding's locked in, that's it, right? So then you've got to go back and try to address that. So I think it's great that you're in that space. So you've already had some challenges in your career to date, whether it be finding the right segment of the industry to work in, or going to the source to find where you can access the funding. Yeah. So, Jess, I know that you've also congratulations, been nominated for the Australian Cotton Leadership Young Cotton Leadership Program. That was in January this year. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. It's the Australian Future Cotton Leaders Program, partnered up with Cotton Australia and Cotton Research Development Corporation. Yeah. They select 15 people in Australia who are leading within the industry currently. And so we're about to start that program in about 2 weeks. Yeah.
And how long does that program go for?
I think it goes for about 6 months. Yeah. We've just been sent the draft. It's quite extensive for the first 6 weeks. We get to, we're doing quite a few, obviously because of COVID, we are going to be doing most of it online, but because the cotton conference, our Australian Cotton Conference here in Australia got cancelled this year again, there is potential of some regional meetups. So our dates, we're having 2 face-to-face meetings pending COVID, but yeah, we're going to be a whole new wig of people. It'll be, I'm just going to take it on as a challenge. So yeah, I do thrive on face-to-face, but I'm going to take this on as a challenge as for Zoom and all our meetups and that. So yeah.
I think we're all struggling with the lack of face-to-face, but one thing that I have to acknowledge is that being able to do Zoom calls allows you to reach so many more people more immediately than if we had to travel to do it. So being a glass half full person, I think it's a positive thing that we have this technology and we're able to almost see each other, almost be together. That program, so it's a 6-month program, and what are you hoping to get from that, Jess?
I would like to gain, I guess, more leadership skills within my advocacy within the cotton industry. I guess I do have a little bit of advocacy skills at the moment, but I guess I would like to gain more skills in developing my story with a clearer message. I guess sometimes I struggle to tell the story that I actually want in a short space of time, and then also want to I guess, encourage other people to be leaders and to develop up like myself as well, and advocate for the industry as well. Yeah.
It is interesting to mention for the word leadership, because again, that's something that, you know, just in every walk of life today, leadership seems to be a really hot topic. You know, how do we find leadership to get us out of the problems that we're in, or how do we use leadership to support people and to bring people to the right end? When you look at leadership, what does it mean to you? How would you describe your style of leadership?
I guess my style of leadership within the cotton industry is being a spokesperson for women in cotton, connecting the farm to consumer story, I guess. I'm really passionate about that. Paddock to plate, making sure that everyone knows where their food and fibre comes from. So I guess I'm quite strong in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to some degree you're also fortunate about the level of mentorship that you've received along the way. And I think when you talk about your mentors to date, I think it's important to emphasize that not many people, or not many young women, get that opportunity to be mentored by such iconic people in the industry, or influential people in the industry.
Yeah. I think that's also that I also mention a lot too when people give me some Q&As, or a bit of somebody wants to know something quickly, like an interview, or like, why do you want to be in ag? What's helped you so far? And I always, or what can you tell somebody to help them get in within the industry, like somebody young? I always say, find yourself a mentor and keep that mentor, and always talk to them, and then always go to meetups, always try and network, you know, because you may not think that event might be helpful, but you never know who you're going to run into. So I just think it's the meetups and the mentorship. Find somebody that you're going to gel with that can help you along the way long term. So
yeah, absolutely. That's definitely the case. And you know, obviously we're looking at women in the cotton industry from a global perspective, and I think the Australian industry, particularly from a research and development point of view, is I would say it's industry leading. Do you see that is going to also play a part in the sustainability, I suppose, of the global cotton industry, the research that's been undertaken in Australia and how it can be shared globally? Do you see a place for Australia in that?
No, absolutely. I mean, the research project that I was a part of with Dr. Robert Mensah was it's the first biological based pesticide called Sterox to support global food security. So that project is now available for growers now on farm here in Australia, and it's to support globally. Yeah,
it's been established. Yeah,
research.
Yeah. One of the other challenges I've found, and I've been in the industry, I'm a lot older than you, but I'm more so on the export side of the industry. But you know, in Australia, one of the biggest challenges we have is just that social license to operate, and the image that certain people have of the industry. Have you found that a challenge as you've worked your way through the industry and moved in different locations, potentially less rural and more in cities? Have you found that as a challenge?
Yeah, it is becoming a challenge, more so, I guess, online now. There's a lot of misinformation online, and there's a lot of negativity around the cotton industry to do with water. But the Australian cotton industry is one of the most innovative industries in agriculture here in Australia. So we're on the forefront of change. So we are improving every year.
Yeah. I find that when I talk to my counterparts as well about that, it's about you listen to criticism, you pay attention to, but you must promote the benefits that the Australian cotton industry can actually bring, and the innovation, as you say, because we are second to none. So it's always going to be a challenge for our industry, but globally, I think we do probably outperform in a lot of areas when it comes to pest management, integrated pest management particularly. We have good best management practice, and we are great stewards of the land. One of the things that I've noticed while I've been talking to cotton growers in the last few weeks has been whether it's cotton grower, whether it's a researcher, whether it's somebody in a chemical supply or whatever it is, the passion for the Australian cotton industry is phenomenal. So how do you feel that as well? Obviously you've grown up with it, but it's something that's very close to your heart, at how the Australian industry performs.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of young people like myself, either on farm or in policy, even here in Canberra. I mean, we can be all making a difference across the supply chain. So there's a lot of enthusiasm in the cotton industry and within Australian agriculture. Yeah.
I know that one of the earlier projects that you were involved in, Jess, was with a retailer in Australia. Can you talk to us about what you did with that project?
So a clothing brand called Jeans West here in Australia reached out to me on Instagram, actually, because I was advocating, just as a person, as myself, being passionate about Australian agriculture. They reached out to me on Instagram, noticed that I was part of the Australian cotton industry, really wanted to hear my story, a part of the spring launch that they were doing for a clothing collection range that they'd collaborated with Cotton Australia. So they did a blog post on me, and it was a chance for me to connect from the farm gate to the consumer, I guess. It was a really great, it was a great project to explain how that process works for the consumer. Yeah.
And do you think that potentially is a space you could step into in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, connecting the food to fibre, paddock to plate. I think it's really important to know, for people to know where their food and fibre comes from. That's true. And that's really missing because a lot of media companies are based in the city, and I think it's really important for us to tell the authentic story within agriculture, and why our contribution is important, most definitely.
Yeah. So on the International Women's Day, what would, if the theme is choose to challenge, what's the one thing that you would choose to challenge in that space?
I guess advocating for the consumer to know where their food and fibre comes from, pretty much what I'm quite strong about. Yeah.
And you see that as an ongoing challenge. It's certainly not something that we...
It is an ongoing challenge, yes, because I guess, I think there's a lot of, there's not enough information online. So again, I think it would be really great to get a lot more brands on board of telling that story, connecting with Australian cotton. A lot of them are in Australia. A lot of them have connected with Australian cotton, Kmart, Bonds, they're all promoting it online at the moment, and it'd be really great if they could, if we could just get a couple of stories out there and get it on board. For sure.
And just one other question, like around
West.
Like Jeans West, exactly. One of the things that we've noticed in our establishing the Women in Cotton group is we didn't realise that how quickly we would grow the group. We've got over 370 people on the LinkedIn group now, and we've gone to regional chats for change. Have you've been on a couple of the chats? You've enjoyed a couple of the chats. Is there anything?
11 p.m. at night I first joined, and I thought this is interesting.
We've taken that on board, and now we're coming at a more reasonable time in the afternoon for our time zone. But is there anything that you can offer to the group that you would say, as a younger person, you're in the global cotton industry, as a younger person, what advice would you offer to people as far as networking is concerned, or promoting each other throughout the industry, promoting the industry in general? What advice would you have for young people?
I think it just draws back to what I mentioned before about finding yourself a mentor. I think that having an online presence is really important as well, but also being quite strategic in your reply as well. If you get some controversial comments, which is bound to happen, I think just think about it, be calm, and reply in the most factual but best way that you can. Engage with the audience is really important. Engagement.
And I suppose knowing not to engage too, Jess.
Yes, know when not to engage, definitely.
You've been involved in several programs for young people in agriculture in Australia. Can you talk to us about which projects you were involved in and what they achieved and what you achieved from those?
Okay, so I was a part of the Cotton Young Farming Champions program as well. So that was back in 2017. That was another, I guess, leadership program for young people in agriculture like myself, which really developed my advocacy skills and put my foot on the ground about how to tell my story in agriculture, I guess. There was quite a few face-to-face meetups with lots of training and tools and public speaking, I would say, as well, which was covered a lot, and learning how to say, not to say But yeah, so that was a really great mini leadership course for me to sort of step into this more bigger program with the Australian Future Cotton Leaders.
And through that first program you were involved in, you actually did a blog space for.
That's right. Yeah, we did. That reminds me. Yes, we did a blog. We had to do a blog story about. It was telling our story, the best way that we could tell our story online. So I did a summary of my career and upbringing thus far from 2017. So that was a real achievement, me to try and put that piece together, I guess. Yeah. I always look back at that and I really enjoy reading it. Yeah.
That's great.
That brought me right up to the ARC, the Australian Research Council. Yeah.
So being in that space and connecting with a retailer and, tying your passion for advocacy in and learning more about leadership, that's really given you the foundation to go to the next program for future cotton industry leadership.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So where can you see yourself in, say, 20 years' time in the cotton industry? Can you describe what it looks like?
I'd really love to be in a role that is advocating for industry, something like potentially maybe at National Farmers Federation here in Canberra, still in policy potentially, but in a role that is connecting the story of telling the consumer about agriculture, an advocacy role, most definitely. Yeah. Although I could potentially still miss the research and policy side of things. I'm just not sure. Yeah. But it's definitely a passion of mine. So, yeah.
Well, I'm eternally grateful for you being in that space, because I think the more passionate people that we have about policy and advocacy and supporting the industry, particularly from farm through to consumer, I think that space is really important, and that story needs to continually be told.
Yeah.
So I suppose we've covered a lot of what we wanted to talk about. Was there anything else that you wanted to contribute for International Women's Day, or is there anything that you and your friends discuss, being a young woman in agriculture or a young woman in policy making, that you see as a challenge that can be a good challenge that you can contribute to positive outcome, or a challenge where you really struggle?
It's really great that, I think we need more women in leadership roles within the agriculture industry. I do still feel like it is quite a male-dominated area. I feel quite comfortable in a policy role as a woman, in a leadership role. But yeah, I think that's a challenge. I think that's a challenge for women in agriculture, women in cotton generally. But I've had a lot of support from industry, and I'm very grateful for the support that I have had. So I do feel like I do have a place within the industry, and I'm really quite happy with how things are going at the moment. So for me, I've had quite a fortunate upbringing to sort of get to where I am today, but for others, it could be a struggle. So yeah, we definitely need to try and improve on the leadership there for women and stepping in the right direction, which draws me back to finding a mentor, most definitely. Yeah.
Great messaging today. And I did actually read something earlier today about women in agriculture. There's something like 32% of the women in the agriculture, of people in the agricultural sector in Australia are women, but encouragingly 55% of the students in the ag business sector are female. So I think we're starting to improve that balance there. I think it's positive for the future.
That's great.
Jess, so good to speak to you today. Thank you for participating, and we look forward to chatting to you again and for you being involved in our Chats for Change.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mimi. It's been great chatting.
Thank you. Thank you.